Hi, this is Adam Coleman. I wanted to go through a real world example of kind of what divorce mortgage planning is and how it can really impact both ex spouses as they're going through the process to hopefully accomplish both of their goals. I see this too often where a lot of scenarios, the settlement agreement isn't set up with the mortgage planning in mind. So I just wanted to kind of go through and show you an actual example of that. So for this case, so the wife was normal W-2 job making $5,000 a month. She was set to receive alimony of $2,500 for the next 3 years. She was also supposed to get $2,000 a month child support until each child turns 18. And then they had negotiated a lump sum of $200,000 from an investment account that was going to be structured as kind of a monthly distribution from a structured note. Her goal was to keep the house, which was worth 750,000. She had a $300,000 mortgage, and then she was required to pay half of the equity to the husband. For the husband's situation, had a $12,000 a month full-time job. He's set to pay $2,500 a month in alimony for 3 years, and then set to pay $2,000 a month in child support. Again, he was set to pay that lump sum of 200,000 from the investment account that was going to the wife, and his goal was to plan to use the equity that he was getting from their marital home that she was going to be paying out to use for the down payment on a new $500,000 home afterwards. So the problem with this is that basically the alimony and the child support can't be used for the wife when she's going to try to get approved for the refinance that would allow her to take the equity out of the home. Alimony and child support both have to have been received for at least 6 months in order for that to be usable income. And then after that 6 months, it still has to continue for another 3 years beyond that point. The alimony is not set to continue for a full 3.5 years. So she hasn't received any of those monthly installments yet. So by the time she's received six, and we can actually start the process, there will not be a 3 year continuance going forward. So that's completely unusable for mortgage purposes. The child support also has to be received for 6 months. One of the children is going to continue for more than 3 years. So the 10-year-old, that child support allocated to that child could be used if we waited a full 6 months before we did the refinance. However, the settlement agreement was set up to where it was going to force the refinance to take place within the next 6 months. So the other issue is that the lump sum that she's receiving of 200,000, if you do it as a structured note, you have to have it for receiving for 12 months. And then after the 12 months is up, it still has to be continuing for 3 years beyond that. We don't have either of these things because it hasn't started yet. So this would basically mean that none of that $5,000 a month of income can be used until she's been receiving it for 12 months, assuming that it was actually going to last for another 3 years beyond that. But based on this math, that would not even be the case. So the problem there is that she doesn't get to keep the house based on this, and she wouldn't be able to refinance anytime in the near future because she doesn't have enough quantified or qualified income for mortgage purposes. So that also means that she can't pull the equity out of the home, which means that the husband's not going to get any kind of money for the down payment. For the husband, he's paying alimony. So even though the wife can't use the alimony and child support, because he's paying it, that's immediately a debt for him. The alimony gets reduced off of his income. The child support actually acts as its own separate debt, which is even a bigger impact on his qualifications. So then he doesn't have nearly as much income as what a lender would need to qualify for what he's trying to do. His income would basically be reduced down to about 9,500 monthly, but then his debts would increase by 2,000 on top of his other debts because of the child support. It basically would ruin the debt to income ratio, and he would not qualify for this new house. He also is not going to get the money for the down payment, so he doesn't have the ability to buy that house. So, in result, neither person gets what they were negotiating for, even though, from somebody looking, outside of this, it looks like they're pretty equitable. Everything seems to be set up pretty closely to what you would expect it to be. But I think there's a better way to do this, and that's kind of the point of divorce mortgage planning is we can kind of look at it as a certified divorce lending professional. we can kind of take a different approach where we're looking at it from the mortgage side of things. And then hopefully using that information to allow the divorce team to structure a similarly equitable distribution of income and wealth, but to actually make it work for the mortgage. So for the alternative option is we would actually remove the alimony completely from the equation. And what that does is it means that we don't have to worry about that 6-month waiting period for alimony. The wife can hopefully, figure out a better option to do something immediately. And then instead, we're actually going to convert that alimony to a slightly larger lump sum amount. You'll notice that the lump sum actually went up by 80,000, even though the alimony would have worked out to be 90,000. So it's a slightly different amount since it is a lump sum. So what this does is we're going to set up the lump sum as a revocable trust instead of a structured note. And what that does is it allows you to use that income only after receiving it just for 1 month. So instead of receiving it for 12 months, like with the structured note, you can actually use this income immediately for purposes of refinancing and doing the equity buyout to get the 50% equity to the husband. So for the husband, we're going to have him not pay any alimony in this case, but he's going to pay a larger lump sum. Child support remains the same, but basically what this is doing is, it's still making it so that we can't use the child support for the income for the wife. Because again, you still have to have it for 6 months. But that's fine because now, in addition to her full-time job, she has $5,000 additional income that she can use to qualify for this refinance. So now she's fine to be able to pull the money out. We can actually start the refinance immediately because, within the, we'll get a distribution from the lump sum and be able to qualify that as income. We can do that almost immediately. So she'll be able to give the 50% equity to the husband very quickly, within maybe a month or a month and a half. And then the husband doesn't have the alimony. So basically he's got the child support to pay, which we already knew, but the alimony is not coming off of his income. So that's increasing his income at this point by $2,000 that was going to be reduced before. The lump sum doesn't really have any impact on qualifying for the mortgage because he's still able to get the equity from the previous home much quicker with this new structure. So now he's able to buy the house using the equity. He's almost able to start looking for homes immediately because we can run these simultaneously with the refinance for the wife's home so that we can use that equity that she's going to be paying him for the down payment. So in result, they both actually get what they're negotiating for, even though nothing changed really from an amount given to one versus the other. So this is why it's very important. And I certainly stress, try to get a mortgage planner that is a certified divorce lending professional involved much earlier on in the process, if possible. The earlier that I can get involved in this, the better off that I can try to help kind of use some of these tips and tricks to hopefully get both parties kind of what they're negotiating for and work with that divorce team to get an equitable, distribution so that both people can actually move on, get rid of this process so that we don't have to deal with, revising divorce decrees or settlement agreements. We don't want to go through this anymore. So the earlier that we can get involved, the better. So please, if you have any questions or if you know anybody or you personally are going through anything like this, please reach out. Again, the earlier that I'm aware of it, the better. I can help everybody on the divorce team to try to get this structured properly. So thank you.